Welcome to Boiling Point, the podcast to motivate ever-evolving entrepreneurs and forward-thinking movement pioneers. Our hosts, filmmaker Greg Hemmings and executive coach Dave Vale, are turning up the heat in the world's business communities. Our interviews with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and movement makers are raising the temperature of inspiration. Live from the hottest studio in this quadrant of the universe, here are Dave and Greg.
Dave, welcome us back together onto the Boiling Point, because we haven't had a normal Boiling Point episode in a number of weeks. You know, we've had this awesome opportunity to bring Dr. Bill Howitt into the Boiling Point seat, taking my spot as your co-host for a few episodes, which has been awesome for me to be listening from the from the engineer side, producing and hearing your conversations. Kind of cool. You'll have to do it sometime too. Sometime I'll put you in the engineering seat, and I'll be the host with another co-host. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if you want me on the tech side, but I would be happy to sit back and listen to the conversation. So that'll happen. And we had Matt Sims on just recently, sharing some really good stuff. And we started thinking, well, there's some leaders, there's some people doing some amazing things out in the community. And David Savoie is our guest today. I've known David for the last 7 or 8 months. We've worked closely together. And I wanted to bring him on. We're going to get him to introduce himself in a moment. And why I wanted to bring him on was that I'm reading a lot and I'm sharing a lot of information on, how to lead through crisis and this sort of thing. And then I've been exposed to people, David being one of them, that are doing some really amazing things. And the way they're leading is really impressive and very practical. And of course, we're in this incredibly challenging time. And David is CEO of Acadian Construction, and a tough sector to be in right now. But David, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for coming on. And maybe just give you a little intro, a little background on who you are, a little bit about Acadian Construction, and we'll just take it from there if that's okay.
Sure. Thanks for the invite, Dave and Greg, and happy to be your guest. This is my first podcast, so it's exciting and nerve-wracking. So a little bit about myself. What was that?
You're doing great so far, David.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bit about myself. David Savoie out of Moncton, New Brunswick. I work and now own Acadian Construction. Grandfather started it in 1958, which is a while back, so we've lived through a few transitions. I joined the company in 2003. Our dad passed away in 2000, so I'll give you some context, joined after. So a little bit of a challenging transition there. And bought a few shareholders out over the years. One would have been my sister Andre, that was running the company from 2000 to 2015. So that's a little bit on the business side. We're a GC out of Moncton. We do work in Atlantic Canada and currently a few projects in Toronto. So that's also adding to the complexity of the current challenge. Married to a wonderful wife, Danielle. I've got 3 kids, Amélie, Emma, and Thomas. Great kids. They're doing the best of what they can right now. Andre would be my sister, then my other sister, and my brother Matt from Montreal, and my mom Angela still around and in the neighborhood. So that gives you a family context. I don't know what else you would like to know. Background: I'm a fine arts major from University of Boston. Did an MBA at St. Mary's University after coming back after my dad's challenge. And I would say I've got a passion for lifelong learning and challenges and puzzles and curiosity. And I don't know if you echo that, Dave, but
Totally. Well, no, and like if anyone was built for this, David Savoie, you certainly are built for. In fact, just kind of relish it. You recognize how challenging this is, but almost like some people are more built for crisis, I think, than others. How many people do you employ? Kind of maybe give people a sense of the projects that you would be working on, or anything you'd be able to share to give context and kind of terms of the scope, and what the company's involved in.
Sure. At peak last summer, we're in the 70s with laborers, carpenters, and of course we're a GC. So you've got maybe sites have a couple of hundreds of tradesmen that would work for subcontractors, all the way to hanging a door for a good client that's asking us to help them out, or a new client that we're trying to show them what we're made out of. So that kind of be the range. Prior to this COVID, I think we were in the 62 range in terms of employees, just being time of year it is. Our team, shout out to the team, they're doing wonderful, great. I'm lucky to have the employees and staff that we have, and people are passionate about what they do. But we'd have people that do renovations in restaurants all the way to manufacturing. Our biggest client could be in the hundreds of millions per year in terms of contracts, to our smallest $1,000 to $10,000 if it's a reno, we're helping them out, and everything in between. Institutional, corporate offices, strip malls, gas stations, anything you'd see out in Atlantic Canada.
Well, there's so much to dive into, especially in the terms of leadership during a crisis like this. But right before we do that, I want to learn a bit more about your fine arts major and what your specialty was there, because it is, I don't want to say it's rare, but it kind of is.
I will say it's rare for a CEO of a construction company.
Yeah, and I love it. I also, my wife is a physician, and a lot of her, or a number of her physician friends, I know to be very creative people. But we don't necessarily connect those two brains together, but they actually are very connected. So I'm always curious to hear what your artistic background was and how that connects into being a phenomenal creative leader as well, right?
I don't know what notes you want me to hit on the fine arts, but I studied to be a film major, worked a little bit in Los Angeles, worked a little bit in Boston for a company when I came back here as well. What the story I tell myself is that curiosity leads to seeing things in other segments of the world or population or industries, and be able to tweak it a bit and bringing it to your application or your challenge, right? It's not accepting the status quo, but looking at a different perspective, different way. And also, we're humans, so we tell ourselves stories every day and tell stories to others. So understanding how to craft messages, or how people justify things or want to put value to certain thoughts, emotions, kind of like a puzzle of a human being. Studying fine arts kind of gives you a little bit of peek inside. I wouldn't say anybody masters it, but it kind of, how do people tick? How do you motivate them? How do you tell a story? How do you connect it? I don't know if that kind of makes sense.
100%, because it's actually, it's one of those things where, there's a lot of very logical, practical, rational business leaders that I am connected with, that we all are through the Walter Kane Institute and whatnot, who I always see people putting people in boxes, like, oh, you're a creative type, you're creative. That's where your box is, But the people I really find interesting is the people that can do those both. They've got their head in both those spaces because of exactly what you just said. Those applications of being a film storyteller or an artist or studying art or, innovation or any of that sort of thing, and bringing that into the traditional business leadership sense is awesome. And I suppose the follow-up question to that is, how has that creativity and leadership been able to help you navigate the last few weeks in keeping the business going and continuing to look to the future?
So if you take the approach of art and creation, you almost think of, what message do I want to get across? What are the important notes I want to hit? And how do I communicate them effectively? So when you have a challenge that's complex as the pandemic or COVID, or even more people's emotions and fears and uncertainty and living, and how do you address that? How can you give people comfort? It's okay. If you boil it down, what's the one message that I get across today? How do I shape that message and make sure that it's effective? So that could be one way, but trying to find a different way to look at the problem. And at the end of it, we're all humans that think that we're better than the generation before us, but there's a lot we can learn at looking at the past. I was looking up something in the 1920s the other day that helped me frame the message that I passed to my team this week. So how does it help? There's not one answer, and we're all humans, and somebody somewhere has had a similar challenge. Maybe not pandemic, maybe it was after the World War, maybe it was after the 2007 crash in the US, maybe it was after the dot-com bubble. People have lived these throughout the years. It's where to go, how do you look for information, filter it, what's applicable, how do you find a sounding board to bounce that off to make sure, does it make sense? And I'd say Dave would be one of them. I call him. He may think I'm bleeping crazy. I don't know if we can swear on podcasts, but I'm bleeping crazy. And, you talk through things. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
That's an awesome answer. That is an awesome answer, David. and you like, actually, you and Greg share this in common, being very creative, but also very curious. And it's wonderful in this. And the idea of being a lifelong learner and being a strong leader, sometimes people don't connect the two ideas. Why don't you share what you decided to do with your employees, kind of to make sure they're staying grounded, some really practical things. And in fact, you've been sharing some things that I've shared with some of our other clients and some of the coaches and said, here's some talking points, some things to consider, because for me, they're really helpful for me personally. And I thought, I really liked how you framed up the message for the people. And like, to me, you're the exact opposite of panic. You're saying, okay, so here, and you have this kind of way of communicating with people, and maybe going to help people understand the cadence and then what you're communicating. And let's just play with that for a little bit.
Sure. So when this started, I actually just send you a spreadsheet early today because I'm tracking the daily cases just to get a clear picture over time. I had heard somebody say that, in 4 to 6 weeks of data, we'll be able to make sense of this world. We're not there yet, so we're uncertainty. So what can you do? Over communicate would be one of them. So at day 6, I think, going back in my brain, we started a pandemic team. I'd read somewhere you do a pandemic team. We cleared our war room. There's 6 tables. They're all 6 meters apart. And we started who needs to be at the office and everybody else is at home and on sites, which is challenging. So we started doing, I think it was by day 9, a company-wide call. So I'm on the webcast or whatever app we're using, and I give them an update. And quickly, when you look at the news, whether it's CBC, CNN, I don't know what outlets people listen to, media, and there, Greg, there's a plug for media. There's the nasty part about media is they get paid per clicks and how many people look at the message, right? So all I could do was, what am I consuming, and make sure that it's positive and bring back to my team. So I started discussing that media, whether it's online or live on TV, get paid to sensationalize stuff to make sure that you're going to watch their program versus somebody else, and then they sell it to their advertisers and they make a crap load of money. So I just started curating. The first part of my agenda would be the good news about COVID, and I go anywhere around the world, find great news, whether it's Bill Gates that just invested $4 billion in creating 9 plants or whatever that was, or just stories of talking to somebody in St. John that had it and they're fine, or whatever I could find. And I hit what the governments are doing, high level, positive. And then I hit what Acadian's doing, what sites are open, what our clients are concerned about, just touch on a few things. And it's a pre-scripted agenda that we work on as the team at 8:30, my calls at 10:30. We hit those notes. And then at the end, I hit my gratitude moment of the day, and I call on 2 people from the WebEx call to say what they're grateful for, and I note them down. And then the next day, I make sure it's somebody else, and just positive, because we can't control what Donald Trump does or says. We can't. We can't control what Trudeau does or says, or Europe or China. We can only control our controllables, and that's what's in our environment, what we do, being positive, being patient, trying to be sympathetic to people around us that may have challenges. So that's all we can control.
I think that's such a wise approach, David, and it is very difficult in a world that is truly run by pay-per-clicks. And the other truth to that is the Fox Newses and the CNNs, they all have big money to make sure the Google searches are ranked up to the top. And it made me think how fortunate we are to have the CBC on the radio, not the television, but on radio, which is advertising free. BBC is probably the very best on earth because it's so heavily tax run. They're heavily funded by the taxpayers, not by corporations. So as I go through and try to figure out what news sources are serving it up straight, CBC and BBC, Al Jazeera also is
Al Jazeera I was going to plug in, yeah.
Yeah, so around the world there are, and of course NPR,
yep.
these fantastic sources but they're not the ones making to the top of the searches either, at all. So what you're doing is incredibly important, because a lot of your people either don't have the time to search through it, don't have the know-how, or maybe even the interest, but you're able to serve that up to them on a daily basis on your team calls. So that's awesome. Great work.
Yep. Yeah. And what would, like, it'll be interesting to hear what the response has been from the employees. And by the way, this is a daily webcast, I believe, right?
It's a daily call that we have company-wide. We're not doing the weekends right now, just Monday to Friday. Look, at the start, it was, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're doing. And this was before the announcements of the government. So we started modeling 3 scenarios, like dire, we got to close the doors, to, okay, well, maybe we can keep the lights on, to, okay, we're breaking even kind of scenarios that we ran. And we were transparent, talking to them, said, look, some of you may have to be laid off as they're volunteers. We may all have to take a pay cut and do the job sharing. This was before the 75% wage subsidies that they came out with. Or, if our clients want to stay open and we win a few jobs, maybe everybody's employed. So just being honest, open about the options, and not telling people what to do. And we've had good debates as a management team in terms of what do we do when. One of the days I told them the 3 options, and told them, right now, we're going to stay the course, keep everybody at home, keep everybody employed. However, we think there's only 3-4 days a week for any of you. So the other day, we're going to do continuous improvement, and we're going to invest and be ready to get out of here stronger than we came in. And that day, the next day, I got a couple of emails from the group saying, that's fantastic. I'm lucky to have a job. I'm lucky. So that's comforting and rewarding as somebody that's trying to do it right by the team. But, revenues are challenging, and supply chain is challenging. And we got 2 projects in Toronto that can't do anything there. So it's a daily, I don't know what you call it, but you're diffusing challenges and bombs daily. It's never stops.
Well, and I like, isn't that's so helpful to hear? And I just, that people want straight talk is my belief. And so to hear that and hear the response you're getting from just being open and honest and saying, here are the options, and laying them out is awesome. And something else you shared with me that I wanted to have you describe it. You also are sharing tips and things you're learning about how to manage things at home. Like, here's what's happening in my family, and here's some things I've been doing, or here's some things I'm learning, or here's some things I'm adjusting, and some tips that, you shared with me. And I was like, geez, I want to be doing that with our family. Like, it was really cool. And I thought, it's not, so you're looking at the whole person, right? You're not, it's just not the employee, the Acadian Construction employee, it's also the mom or the dad, and recognizing some of the challenges that might be happening at home. And you have some really cool things that I thought, and I'm sure there's more since we talked. So that was probably last week. So there's 20 new things now. But
if I forget something, jump in. But so back on the news cycle, I don't listen to the news till I get home, or maybe late in the day. So first thing in the morning, I'll wake up, and we have a dog, 2-year-old. He's got a little bit of energy. So I walk him first thing. I'm usually up at 5:45-ish, walk him for 40 minutes. I listen to Audible. Right now, I just finished the Blue Ocean Strategy on how to innovate and change into it. And a friend of mine told me to read the next one, or listen to, is 0 to 1. I guess it's like an IT startup. I don't know it.
I read that. That's an excellent book. Yeah.
So that it's positive, it's not negative. So I don't turn on CBC radio. I listen to songs on my way to work. But just walking the dog kind of gives me my things to tackle that morning. It's my mindset. But when I drop the dog off at home, the dog's already been exercised. So when the 3 kids and Danielle wakes up, there's a little bit of energy spent within his body and spirit. So then the kids will wake up. We've got a little bit of a routine, and I'll thank Danielle for doing most of it. So Monday is cleaning the house day. So they all get involved. They clean the house from top and down, clean laundry, clean the washrooms, getting their beds ready. So that's a discipline that we're doing. The rest of the week they'll have, so I'm lucky to be a member of YPO, and I got an email from them, and they talked about Khan Academy, KHAN Academy.org. It's free. You go online.
Excellent.
Age of your kids, mathematics, French, English, whatever that you think they should be touching on. So we started that a few weeks ago. So they'll be in that school dimension from 9 to 1:30 for breaks, activities and projects. So one project that my two girls are doing, 10 and 12, is they're writing me an email a day. So how to open a computer, how to type, write a message, craft a message. So that's pretty neat. And the highlight of my week is this week, Danielle made them use Excel, and I love Excel. So I got a little Excel spreadsheet on their favorite colors, and they ranked it, and they did a pie chart. But, you know, at that age, they're not getting that exposure at school. So that's pretty neat to start doing. By the time I get home, I try to get home 3-ish if I can. Some days it's beyond that, 5. Danielle gets a break. She walks the dog and has her alone time. We either play cards, puzzles, talk about supper. Maybe they help do a dessert. We did 4 desserts this weekend. We did lemon cake, carrot cake, cookies, like just name it. So they learn how to cook, and they want to do cookies, open the cooking book. You know, go in the back, find cookie. What page is it? Do we have the ingredients? Nope. Okay, find another recipe. So just getting them to go through it and preheating the oven. So that's pretty neat. Last week, we were fortunate, and again, thanks to the team, we had won and been nominated for the Canada's Best Managed Company. I think there was 27 in Canada this year. It was supposed to be last Thursday night, which of course we're in this challenge. So I got a little care package from my team in terms of a gift card to order food and a few niceties. But the day before, I got my girls, I said, look, tomorrow night, Dad and Mom would be in Toronto, and the company and the team would have won this award. So part of your homework, please go check what this is and let me know what you thought. So when I came home, there's a little paper trophy that they made, which was great. And they made a little video about Acadian. And the next day, our 10:30 a.m. call, it's a little video done by Amélie mostly. I showed it to the company, and they seemed to like it. So that was kind of our winning moment. But, you know, the kids get to learn technology, and it's a project and kind of like a craft. So we're not stuck in it's just got to be math or just reading.
Yeah, well, you know what's cool about that too, David, is my kids, very similar parallel stories. When Jessica's baking, the kids will come help, and they're learning math. Like, it's very intentional, like doing fractions with the cups. Also, my eldest girl just did a cute little COVID animation. She taught herself how to animate on the computer. She did it in French and English. So I'll have to send it to you. It's pretty cool, but it's neat when I know the Khan Academy is very much in line with this type of teaching, which is not about the standard, sit in the classroom and do this, but really truly being intentional in learning math, history, languages, arts through real life day-to-day experiences. So I think this crisis with the kids at home, it's going to help us think about new ways of how education should be. It'll be neat to see how it all sifts out at the end.
And the other thing that we did was last weekend, and we're still trickling through, is you guys are in charge of one night. So we had paint night with Amélie, and then we had Nintendo Switch night with Thomas last night. And at some point, it's going to be cheerleading night with Emma. I don't know when that's going to be. That's going to hurt probably. I don't know what moves I can do, but right, you empower them, be in charge of something, figure it out, plan it, get a schedule done, and get what you need. So those are life skills.
How are people, your employees, responding to this? Because you're really showing, the whole, all of you, by sharing the video. And I'm glad you shared that, because I was really wanting Greg to hear that, because I think he'd appreciate, what a great way to celebrate. I mean, and congratulations, by the way. I mean, a real honor to get Best Managed Company, and so unfortunate you couldn't go, but you guys created a celebration, and I love how you brought your family into it, because I mean, it's really hard, as as we all know. You're not just the CEO of Acadian Construction, and then you're the dad, and you've really found a way to integrate all the roles that you play, despite what we're dealing with, right? And I find that fascinating. I'm just wondering, has that been a new thing for you in terms of the employees and them seeing, David, the father, as well as the CEO, or is that something that has that always been present?
That I don't know. I've not gotten feedback, but I was thinking, because you had asked me a few days ago to be part of this, and I don't know when you caught me, but I was thinking interesting as human beings that we measure ourselves with how busy we can be or how many activities we could get, or I don't know why, but just keeping busy and lots of stuff. And what this has done is stripped away all those things that maybe not that important that we signed on, whether it's a charity here or whether it's be on a committee or a group or trying to, I don't know, start building cars, whatever you put in front of you in terms of challenges, and just boiling it down to really the day-to-day life, what's important. Okay, it's my health, and then it's my family, and then it's my team at the office and their families, and then and trickles out of there. But because there aren't that many distractions, you're hyper-focused on the simple life compared to the busy life and flying to a conference. And so that's kind of, so maybe they're seeing more of that because I'm more active day to day. I don't know how they're interpreting that, but
I'm sure they're loving having Dad around.
Yeah.
It's interesting to say flying to conferences. I like my whole business development strategy is conferences. You know, I fly all over the place for these things, and oftentimes I truly get FOMO when I say no to going to one. You know, because like my community's there, and what am I missing on opportunities? But what a nice relief I'm having right now with absolutely no pressure because nobody's going. You know, it's like, it's okay. Don't get on an airplane. It's not happening. And yeah, anyway, like you said, there are silver linings to all of this. And I continue to stay in that bubble to figure out. And I'm excited to see what the positive changes are going to be when we come out of this as humanity, hoping that Mother Earth is able to continue to take a little bit of a breath, you know, of fresh air, if you will, through this, because the skies are blue right now. There's not a lot of activity happening. So,
and you know, Mother Nature, it's a good point. People are stressed, and I'm hearing people are having mental health issues, and that's challenging. And I'm not there yet, knock on wood, but we don't control that, right?
Yep.
This virus, we don't control that. It happens. Something like, it's just, you got to make the best of what it is for as long as you got. And after that, that's it.
Yep. Yep.
That's life. That's humanity. The other thing that I didn't mention on the team, because I was looking at you, I think you're all part of a forum type environment, you know, whether it's Wallace McCain, YPO, there's a bunch of them. The other thing, I started having weekly calls of an hour. So I've got 4 different calls or 4 different groups. Get quite a bit at all of them, but I've asked my team to do the same. So reach out to people in businesses with similar challenges. So one in safety, one in operations. So they're creating their own forum, even though they've never been part of a Wallace McCain or YPO. They get a call a week, they talk about their challenges. And I think the more that people communicate between themselves within your team and outside your team, and you don't have to be there, they see that everybody's got their challenge. So we're going to get through this, and society's going to find a way. And what's the best practice you've got that I can maybe co-opt or adopt? Yeah.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think it's all 3 of us would subscribe to that, because we're all part of peer groups. You know, you've really doubled down on it, David, with, you know, YPO and Wallace McCain. And but, you know, for the leader, or for the person that maybe hasn't found the support around them that, you know, that they could benefit from, or working with a coach, or just having a peer that you can talk to, all those sort of things. Like, what have you found most valuable about that? As you know, you generally would do that anyways, right? But I'm thinking particularly now, what has been so valuable, and what advice would you give people listening to the podcast?
I think now is not the time to overthink, just act. So our safety officer here, Fabian, you know, there's no guideline on what to do in construction. Like now there is, but day one, there was no rule of 6 meters in Kenya and what do you need. And so day one, we were chatting about connect with the big contractors. And he did with one that's a national firm. And then the work health safety out of New Brunswick, connecting with them, and a road building company. So he's got his little own group, and it's helping shape a policy in New Brunswick, but the work health safety guy knows he's talking to my guy and a few others, and what are your challenges and what are you going through. So just that government does not have the answer. Most of the leaders out there don't have the answer. Society do not have the answer. It's going to be a lot of information share and good values. And, you know, we're lucky to be in Canada and fortunate enough, and what does success look like as a group. And I think that would be one. I don't know if that hits your mark, but
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, so we got about a half an hour format. So we're just in closing a couple things. So someone listening to this wants to learn more about Acadian Construction and David Savoie. What would you, how would they do that? How would they learn more?
Oh geez. So we have a website that's in transition, so that's probably not the best. I mean, you could go on LinkedIn and maybe see my profile that helps you connect, but my email is easy, david@acadianconstruction.ca. Send me a note and I'll do my best to respond and see if I could help out. And
you mean that sincerely too?
Huh?
You mean that sincerely as well?
Yeah, because we're not gonna, one person's not gonna get out of this. And what I've learned through government trying to help, they're doing the best they can, but that machine is so slow. And right now we have to act fast. So I think the business leaders and leaders in the community, wherever you are, it's our time to step up before we wait somebody else to solve a problem, because it ain't gonna happen. So if I can help anybody, that'd be great.
And Greg, David said he wasn't, he was is new to podcasts. Seems like he's pretty comfortable, eh?
He's doing great. Yeah, David, did you realize how easy it would be?
What, to start my own podcast? No,
just to be the guest. It's good.
Oh, to be a guest, yeah. Maybe I'll be your co-host when Dave.
I like that idea.
I had a feeling that was coming. I
also wanted to show you this. I don't know if you can see it. Hold on. Tell me if you can see it. Anyway,
yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
It's the baby monitor that was just handed to me, which means the time has come to say thank you, David.
Hey,
what an inspiring conversation. Seriously, man, like you are an inspiration, and you've reminded me to continue pushing leadership the way you are. So really do appreciate that and you sharing this.
Can I leave it one last thought that's been sticking with me?
100%.
As leaders, we almost have to be counter-cyclical. So right now it's pandemic. We should be thinking growth. When it's growth, you should be thinking pandemic or whatever words you want. But you as a leader should be on the other side thinking of.
Fantastic advice. Okay, I've got one little piece of advice too from this conversation. And Dave, you can close off with yours. You're mentioning about how fortunate we are to be Canadian. I've never felt that so strongly than the last 2 weeks. I was having a conversation today with somebody about privilege, something we don't talk about very much because we're all quite privileged to live here and we forget. And when you hear that term about check your privilege isn't a bad thing. Privilege is a powerful thing. The problem is so many of us forget that we are here as a privilege, and if we can use our privilege to help others, then that's the whole point. And I think when I see crap on social media and on the news, of people complaining about this, that, and the other thing, and where's my piece, where's my share, and all the stuff, we have to check our privilege, especially at times like this. No, especially when times are good, actually. So that's my little nugget of takeaways, David. How about you, Dave?
Oh, I'm just really, really happy that David shared his story, and what's wonderful is how transparent he is, and this is just who he is, and I'm hoping that people get a sense of who he is and do hit him up and do ask him questions because he's built to share, and the guy is prolific, David, in terms of learning and what you're involved in, and you're really, I think, an excellent role model for leaders. So thank you, brother. And I'm sure I will enjoy listening to you and Greg host a podcast in the future. I will be a little jealous, but that's okay. I can work with that. But anyways, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, take care.
Stay safe.
Right.
Enjoy. Say hi to the baby for me, Greg.
Will do.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Boiling Point. Remember to rate and subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter @BoilingPointPod. To see more from Dave Vale, check out leadershipunleashed.ca or visioncoachinginc.com. And on Twitter @Dave_Vale. And to catch up with Greg, visit hemmingshouse.com and @Greg Hemmings on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and remember, keep that pot boiling.